The year is 1200 BCE. The Eastern Mediterranean is the pinnacle of human achievement. The Egyptians, the Hittites, the Mycenaean Greeks, and the Canaanites have built a globalized trade network of bronze, gold, and spice. It is an age of heroes and monuments. Then, the horizon began to fill with sails. Ancient records from across the region suddenly turn frantic. We see letters between kings begging for military aid. One king writes, "The enemy's ships are here. They have set fire to the cities, and they have done great harm." Within a few short decades, the Hittite Empire is erased. The Greek palaces of Mycenae are abandoned. The city of Ugarit is burned so thoroughly that its ruins are still scorched today. History calls these invaders the Sea Peoples, a name given by 19th century archaeologists, but to the people of the Bronze Age, they were the end of the world. Most of what we know about these raiders comes from a single source: Pharaoh Ramesses III. On the walls of his mortuary temple at Medinet Habu, he carved a massive visual war diary of his struggle against the invaders. The reliefs show a terrifying naval battle. Unlike the Egyptians, the Sea Peoples are depicted with distinct feathered headdresses and horned helmets. They didn't just bring soldiers. The carvings show them traveling with their families in ox carts. This wasn't just a pirate raid. It was a migration. Ramesses lists their tribes: the Peliset, the Checker, the Shekelesh, the Denyen, and the Weshesh. He claimed to have slaughtered them in their tracks, but even in victory, Egypt was so weakened that it would never truly recover its former glory. Who were they, and where did they come from? For centuries, this has been the ultimate archaeological puzzle. Because they left no cities of their own, we have to trace them through the DNA of their artifacts. The Peliset. Most scholars link them to the biblical Philistines. Pottery found in Israel from this period is almost identical to Mycenaean Greek styles, suggesting they may have been displaced Greeks. The Denyen. Some link them to the Danaans mentioned in Homer's Iliad, further supporting a Greek or Aegean origin. The Shardana. Records describe them as elite mercenaries who eventually served the pharaoh. Their horned helmets and round shields bear a striking resemblance to the Bronze Age cultures of Sardinia. The leading theory today is that the Sea Peoples weren't a single ethnic group, but a patchwork quilt of displaced people from across the Mediterranean, forced into a life of piracy by circumstances beyond their control. While the Sea Peoples were the ones holding the torches, historians now believe they were the symptom of the collapse, not the sole cause. The Mediterranean was suffering from a perfect storm of disasters. Megadrought. Climate data from cave stalagmites shows a massive 300-year dry spell that led to widespread famine. Earthquake storms. A series of seismic shifts leveled many cities in Greece and the Levant simultaneously. Internal revolts. With the food gone, the peasant classes rose up against their chariot-riding elites. As the empires crumbled from within, the Sea Peoples, displaced by these same disasters, became a marauding wave of refugees and warriors, preying on the dying husks of the old world. It was a cascading systems failure, where every pillar of society fell at once. The Bronze Age ended in fire, but from its ashes, the modern world began to take shape. The collapse of the great empires allowed smaller, more flexible cultures to emerge. The Peliset settled on the coast of Canaan and became the Philistines. The Israelites emerged in the highlands. The Phoenicians took to the sea, eventually giving us the alphabet we use today. Perhaps most importantly, the disruption of the tin trade, necessary for bronze, forced blacksmiths to start experimenting with a difficult, common metal found in the earth: iron. The Sea Peoples didn't just end an age, they acted as the violent midwife for the birth of the Iron Age. The story of the Sea Peoples is a warning about the fragility of globalized systems. The Bronze Age world was interconnected, prosperous, and seemingly invincible. Yet, when the climate changed and the supply chains broke, it only took a few decades for 1,000 years of progress to vanish. The Sea Peoples remain a ghost story from our deep past, a reminder that when the horizon fills with sails, it's rarely just about the ships. It's about a world that has reached its breaking point. We may never know the names of their kings or the songs they sang, but we live in the world they helped create by tearing the old one down. We live in an era of unprecedented connectivity. A smartphone designed in California uses lithium from Chile, cobalt from the Congo, and microchips manufactured in Taiwan, all assembled in China before being shipped across the ocean to a store near you. We call it the modern global economy. We think it is invincible. But 5,000 years ago, the ancient world was just as hyper-connected. The empires of Egypt, Mycenaean, and the Hittites relied on a delicate, globalized trade network of tin and copper to make bronze. When that network broke, everything fell. Today, we are going to look into a dark mirror. If the Bronze Age collapse happened right now, in our current day and time, it wouldn't start with an alien invasion or a nuclear war. It would start exactly how it did before, a cascading failure of the systems we take for granted. In the ancient collapse, the first domino to fall was the climate. A centuries-long mega-drought crippled agriculture across the Mediterranean. In our modern scenario, the trigger is a severe multi-year climate anomaly that devastates the world's primary agricultural hubs. The breadbaskets of the world, the American Midwest, the plains of Ukraine, and the river valleys of India, suffer unprecedented crop failures. Food prices skyrocket overnight. Governments panic, immediately halting grain and food exports to protect their own populations. The globalized food supply chain, which relies on just-in-time delivery logistics, completely locks up. Supermarket shelves in import-dependent regions empty within 48 hours. The thin veneer of modern civilization begins to scratch. In 1200 BCE, the collapse of the tin trade stopped the production of bronze, the fundamental technology of the era. Today, our bronze is silicon and rare earth elements. As geopolitical tensions rise due to food shortages, a localized conflict, or a series of massive cyber attacks targets key semiconductor fabrication plants and transoceanic fiber optic cables. Suddenly, the global internet fractures. Satellite communications degrade. The cloud networks that manage global banking, air traffic control, and electrical grids experience rolling blackouts. Without the digital infrastructure, international shipping companies cannot track containers, banks cannot process cross-border payments, and factories cannot source the specialized parts needed to keep the lights on. The modern world is suddenly forced to operate at a fraction of its speed. With the global system fractured, the modern Sea Peoples emerge. In ancient history, the Sea Peoples were not a single invading army. They were a massive, desperate patchwork of refugees, displaced warriors, and pirates forced onto the water because their own homelands had collapsed. In our current time, the modern Sea Peoples are the millions of climate and economic refugees fleeing completely destabilized regions. But as resources dwindle, these migrations turn aggressive. Desperate maritime coalitions form. Failed state militaries, private security firms gone rogue, and organized pirate networks unite. They don't use wooden boats. They use hijacked container ships, fast attack ribs, and commercially available drones. They target the world's vital maritime choke points. the Malacca Strait, the Bab el-Mandeb, and the English Channel. They aren't raiding for gold. They are raiding for fuel, medicine, and food. In the ancient world, the mighty Hittite Empire vanished, and Egypt was permanently crippled because their centralized, top-heavy bureaucracies couldn't adapt to decentralized threats. Today, our modern superpowers face the same fatal flaw. Massive naval carrier groups, designed for conventional warfare against other nations, find themselves completely ill-equipped to handle thousands of decentralized, asymmetric drone attacks and pirate swarms targeting commercial shipping lanes. Insurance companies refuse to cover cargo ships entering international waters. Global trade grinds to a near-total halt. The centralized governments of the West, overwhelmed by domestic food riots, hyperinflation, and failing power grids, pull their military forces inward to maintain domestic martial law, abandoning the international commons to the shadow of the raiders. The Bronze Age collapse felt like the end of the world, but it was actually a harsh reset. The collapse of the bronze trade forced humanity to adapt, giving rise to the widespread use of iron, a cheaper, more abundant metal that decentralized power. In our modern collapse, the loss of the global digital grid forces a local resurgence. Regions are forced to become self-sufficient. Megacities fade as populations decentralize back toward agricultural zones. The failure of complex global supply chains sparks a new era of localized engineering. 3D printing, utilizing local recycled plastics, localized microgrids powered by solar and wind, and decentralized mesh networks replacing the broken global internet. The corporate monopolies of the old world crumble, replaced by smaller, agile, and more resilient local communities. If archaeologists 5,000 years from now dig up the ruins of our current era, what will they find? They will find layers of ash over our automated warehouses, broken servers buried in the mud, and silent container ships rusted onto beaches. The story of the Sea Peoples, told in our current time, is not a fantasy. It is a blueprint of systemic vulnerability. It reminds us that complexity is a luxury born of stability. When the climate shifts, when the supply lines snap, and when the vulnerable are pushed to the brink, the horizon will always fill with sails. The only question is whether our modern world will learn from the dust of ancient empires, or if we are destined to join them as just another tragic chapter in the history of human collapse. In the ancient Mediterranean, the Sea Peoples were feared because they came from beyond the horizon. They were outsiders who struck when empires were already unstable. But today, the threat doesn't arrive on ships. The modern Sea Peoples don't come from the sea at all. They rise from within. A nation becomes vulnerable when its own people elevate leaders who no longer reflect the country's shared values, laws, or identity. When institutions drift away from what citizens believe in, trust erodes. And once trust erodes, unity fractures. Modern invaders don't need to storm the coastline. They only need a society divided enough to open the gates for them. When citizens turn against each other, when the social fabric tears, when the nation becomes consumed by internal conflict, it creates the same kind of opening ancient empires once faced, an opening that invites manipulation, collapse, or even conquest. The danger today isn't a fleet appearing on the horizon. It's the slow, quiet instability that grows from inside, the kind that can weaken a powerful nation without a single enemy ever crossing the sea.